Hello everyone and welcome to my multiple part series about the stories and the countries I've been to before I started vlogging my travels. The first country I'm going to talk to you about is my first ever solo trip, which was to Berlin in Germany.
Welcome to Berlin, Germany. As I said, this was the first place I ever solo travelled to. I did take a lot of videos, but I wasn't into my vlogging at that point. I got to see such famous monuments such as the Reichstag, Checkpoint Charlie and the Berlin Cathedral. I also got to experience a nightclub for the first time, however it was empty. It was definitely interesting experiencing a hostel for the first time. As you can see, I'm very excited. I was in a room with 26 other people, but I made some friends in that room that I'll remember for a lifetime. And I also got to see the Berlin Wall and see the tunnels people dug under it and many other attempts that they tried to escape to get to a better life in West Berlin.
Berlin was definitely a great first location for a first solo trip. I learned many good lessons. I got many good souvenirs like this East German Border Patrol Guard helmet. The next country I'm going to tell you about is the two trips I took to Iceland.
And here are my two family trips to Iceland. The first one was in February 2022 with my mum's side of the family, including my late grandma. We got to see some geysers that smell like rotten eggs, got to experience the Blue Lagoon and the beautiful views of Iceland and the snow. We had lovely thick snow that unfortunately resulted in us getting stuck in a snowdrift on the way back from the airport for about 3 hours, which was not fun. We had to call in search and rescue to come get us, and they had to dig us out of the snow and pull us out. Apparently we weren't the only ones stuck that day, as that's why we were waiting so long. I had to pull out this Caterpillar tank kind of vehicle to come rescue us, and then we had to quickly get back on the road and head back towards the airport, and that was one of many things that went wrong with that holiday. And then December 2025, when I went with my dad and my siblings, we had some lovely little bits of snow. I attempted to go swimming in the water in the sea, but compared to the Baltic it was far too cold, and jumping straight into snow straight after does not help in any way, shape or form, because that was meant to be a hot tub there and it wasn't there. But we got some beautiful views once again. We got to see the lava show, got to see real lava flowing, and it was an all-round amazing trip.
Iceland is an amazing country. You see why it's called the country of fire and ice. I've even got some of the lava we saw at the lava show from my last trip. It is such a surreal place, it doesn't feel real. It's very expensive though, one of the most expensive tourist destinations I've ever travelled to, but it is so worth it. The next country I'm going to tell you about is 4 different countries that I did in one trip. It was my first multi-country trip. It's the only one I've done to this date, and that is the Baltics and Sweden.
And here we have my trip through the Baltics and Sweden, starting off in Lithuania, exploring the old castles of Trakai and the old town of Vilnius, before heading up north through the border into Latvia and heading into their capital city of Riga, which had a good nightlife, a beautiful landscape and a bunch of museums, some even recording evidence of the war in Ukraine and how the Baltic countries are supporting them, and seeing the changing of the guard at their freedom monument. Then I crossed into Estonia, seeing the medieval restaurants and stalls of their old town, seeing the old Orthodox cathedrals that they had and the Kikindakok fortress, before swimming in the Baltic Sea. Then heading to Sweden, where I got to see the famous port city of Stockholm and seeing the Vasa ship.
The Baltics was an amazing trip. It taught me about budgeting, how to cope while ill, as I came down with a cold when I was in Estonia. It taught me how to be independent, and I learned a lot about Eastern Europe, the history and the culture, and why it is how it is with the remnants of the history they have. But that wraps up this episode of the countries I've been to that I didn't vlog, because it was either I was too young, like the first Iceland trip, or I just took photos and I wasn't really into the vlogging scene at that point, like in Germany. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, and more will be on the way shortly. Thanks for watching.